And then we end and she's like, I'm writing this memoir. I'm looking out the window and I realized I never read my full comprehensive review from my hospital stay 2 months ago. And she looks at it and
2 years ago.
Sorry, I meant 2 years ago. And so she looks at it and she's like, I don't agree with anything they said.
She says, the report is quite short, only 18 pages. How complicated did you think you were? You think it should be longer than 18 pages? That's longer than this book should have been.
She goes, they got a lot of things I said wrong. Like they asked her, had you ever written a suicide note? And she had one time, but then she ripped it up and like threw it out. And they said that she didn't. She doesn't like the use of the word denies.
She denies she has ADHD. She denies that she uses recreational substances.
I wonder if that's just a medical requirement because at the end of the day, you cannot say definitively she does or does not, especially when you're working with somebody who's like
self-reporting.
Yeah, she's self-reporting symptoms. And so I wonder if she's just like being offended by typical medical jargon.
Yeah, I felt that was the case. And then they have this bombshell. One wonders if it may be possible that on the surface, she's ready to reject men as a group, but perhaps at a deeper level, her rage towards maternal figures may be far more powerful. And she's like, how fucking dare you say, oh, she hates men, but it must be a woman's fault in the first place.
I will say
she's so mad at her mom and she won't acknowledge it.
And she knows the whole book is about how mad she is at her mom.
I mean, you said this 100 pages ago. You said it's so random that this whole book is about how much she hates men when the person she hates most is her mom.
And to this day, when she claims she likes her mom, she still doesn't even like her mom. She's like mad that when her mom's there for Petunia's death, she's like, can I come on a walk with you too? And she's like, no, but fine. Because the problem is what she's mad at is herself. She is mad at her mom because she feels her mom started this pattern for her where her mother was a talented woman who was told you're not allowed to be talented. You must be a stay-at-home mother. So her wings were clipped and she had to live dependent on a man. It's interesting that one of the big problems in her parents' marriage was that her mom was always mad that her dad didn't let her spend more money. So Anna took that and she went in and she took all of what she thought was exceptionalism, all of her supposed grandiosity, and she found these men who had tons of money and were like living very fulfilling, creative success stories. And she glommed onto them and then she felt bad for herself because she's like, I can't finish anything. I have nothing to my name except for a rich man and I hate men. You don't hate men. To this day, you're turning to Javier and saying, do you like me now? Do you like me now? You're asking a 28-year-old man who lives in a East Village walk-up for notes on your fucking thesis. You're obsessed with male validation. What you hate is yourself for needing it and you blame your mom for putting that seed in you. And let me tell you, you don't know yourself as well as you think you do. And that's why this book low-key sucks. You're obsessed with yourself. You think everyone's looking at you. Literally work retail for 40 hours a week. It will snap you out of this so fucking fast. I just think you have coddled and boredomed yourself into nothing. There's never been grit. You have no grit.
She has convinced herself that every whim is like a deep dive worth exploring. And the problem is that she has the money to do so.
Yes. She is Yolanda Hadid, but emotionally.
And then she goes on this diatribe with like all the hack bullshit. Women displaying anger, even acknowledging anger, are deemed pathological.
So she goes, the whole problem with men is that they think they're neutral. They can't even believe that I would be so upset about the patriarchy. You're not that upset about the patriarchy. But can I tell you something? There are women who live lives in their communes. If you hated men this much, you would have like figured out a different way to live outside of like suckling at the teat of a man.
I can't help but laugh at how his suggestion, the final report, makes me seem like an unhappy 1950s housewife who needs to be kept under control. The sad, devastating truth of your life is that you are an unhappy housewife.
This whole life story of yours was told boyfriend to boyfriend, as opposed to like your own life story. I mean, stop looking at it through the lens of men. And I think I exactly said that when this book was announced and I said it was called Men Have Called Her Crazy. I'm like, when you look at your life through like what men have prescribed to you, that is a choice you are making.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but like break free.
And that's the thing is we do live in a society that tells women from the day they're born, you will find a husband. You must find a husband. You will grow up to like be the wife of a family. But we all live in the world and you can make choices.
I guess I feel like as someone who obviously I also live in a patriarchal society, someone wrote into Worm to the Wise, which is an advice column we do every month on the Patreon, and said like, how do you handle when older men don't take your profession seriously or they don't take what you do seriously? And I was just like, oh, I don't know. That's not a problem I have encountered in years. I guess my dad really loves me. So that would be like the one problem and I'm lucky for that. But I'm like, I don't know. If a man doesn't know how big podcasting is, that's on him. He's an idiot. I live a life where like my income comes from the audience of this podcast, which is 96% women. My boss is a woman. My employees are all women. That's Ashley too, and Bug. Like, I don't know. I guess I have cultivated this niche in comedy where it's like for women, by women, starring women. And of course, men exist, but I'm like, I guess I have figured out a way to have it like not dominate my life. So I know it's possible.
Yeah, I've had men not take me seriously because of my job, and it used to bother me. And then I realized, oh my God, why would it? My life is awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. You at some point have to like build something in yourself. I will say building something in yourself comes from like building something, you have to find something you're proud of that you made. I don't care if it's a lampshade, but you have to make like 20 more lampshades. You have to finish the lampshade project.
That's the thing, is it doesn't come to you. You have to come to it. You have to push past. The problem is that there are cringe moments, embarrassing moments in everything. You have to push through to find your own center. You can't expect people to like bestow a title and an importance upon you.
I think her problem is that she sees herself as an artist, but you have now cycled through about 10 different art forms and you get bored with all of them. So maybe you have to accept that you're not an artist. Maybe there's something else you like to do, but maybe your purpose on this planet is something you don't love. Maybe you just don't have a passion like that. And that kind of sucks, but it's true for a lot of people. Maybe you have no sense of what you actually like and you have to stop lying to yourself.
I feel like a really dishonest thing about this book and about like the societal conversation around Anna Marie Tendler is that she did forge a path in art by her own right.
The amount of people who are like, I didn't even know about John Mulaney. I had only ever heard of the lampshade.
It's
like,
just not true. She did create sort of like a hollow figure that is herself, that any woman who's ever been treated poorly by a man that everyone else thinks is a nice, good guy can relate to. Like anytime a woman has been treated badly by a guy that everyone else in the room says, oh, he's the best, they looked to Anna Marie Tendler and said, she's the beacon of our experience.
Well, I think part of it is because, I mean, and ironically, not to be like everything Anna Marie Tendler roads lead back to men, but part of what was so heartbreaking is that for years, we had heard about how great their love was.
Yes.
Like we had a parasocial relationship with their relationship because of the storytelling and narrative and world building of John Mulaney.
Yeah.
He broke our mirage of their perfect marriage and she walked away with the reputation. But like the reputation came from a marriage that I don't know ever existed. Because when you look at the timeline of this relationship, which comes in bits and pieces to this book, they were clearly living separate lives during COVID. She was in Connecticut. He was obviously relapsing in New York City. That's not her fault, but they were living separate lives. And then you think for 6 months before that, she was living in Washington, D.C. So they were separate back then too. Like how long had they been living separate lives? So this whole idea that they had this perfect relationship. Also, I will say, post breakup, she really hit home this narrative that they didn't have kids because of him. And now she was doing IVF because she had been like left in her prime and unable to fulfill her dream of children. She's the one that didn't want kids.
The problem is she has woven a life that is so held up by like male tent poles. It's actually impressive. I think it's good that you were able to turn it into a book deal and an art career. Congratulations.
And I bet she feels a lot better. And it has nothing to do with the boys she's dating. It has to do with the fact that like she has something to her name so she doesn't have to feel ashamed of herself. I don't think that that shame was all misdirected. I think some of it was like valid, that she was like, I'm 35 with every opportunity in the world and I've done nothing.
Yeah.
It's really hard on your self-esteem to not have followed through. And I've been there. And like the only way to get through it is to like bits and pieces show up for yourself when things are hard and then prove it to yourself and then learn to like yourself because of it. And me and people I know and love, I've seen all of us, like that's what growing up is. It's like getting so frustrated with feeling bad about yourself. And I feel like the self-sabotaging of it all, where you want to do something, you're not that good at it, you get mad at yourself, so you give up, you call it boredom, whatever. It doesn't come as easily as you thought it would. It's not coming with the praise you thought it would. So you give up and now you don't have the fortitude that you need, which is also its own muscle that you must build in order to succeed at anything. And then you feel worse and worse and worse about yourself. At some point, you just have to like work on it.
And that's not to dismiss that she probably does have very real mental health issues. She does have depression. She does have anxiety, and that makes it harder. But to say that it takes her out of the game entirely is like unfair to herself, and it's unfair to anyone else who struggles with those things.
Yeah. And I think to say it's all the external world, it's not me, it's the systems I was born into.
Mm-hmm.